story here. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Coach David. I am here with egelloC, and we are here with a special guest today. One of our students that has had a success story, right? Obviously now our student is still waiting on a bunch of other schools as well, but we just wanted to highlight kind of some of the things that our student did and kind of like how he kind of went through this process to make sure that other families can learn from kind of his experience. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and if you can kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself, Prashant, kind of where you're from, and kind of what your kind of interests are. I think that'd be a great start for our families.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm Prashant. I'm from the Bay Area. So, it's definitely that really competitive environment, but my interest kind of lied in computer science, so that's kind of what I applied to for Purdue University. And so, yeah, I'm from the Bay Area, and my interest with computer science kind of started like I've always enjoyed coding, and I've always been more of like a STEM person. So in school, math has always been my favorite subject, and that's kind of how I came around to choosing computer science. And yeah.
All right, perfect. So thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. You kind of gave it a little spoiler already, but Prashant was accepted early to Purdue, right? A school that is very well known for its computer science and engineering programs, right? Now, because we already spoiled that, right? Obviously he is already in there, right? Now, can you also tell us about some of the other schools that you maybe got into already or that you've applied to and are waiting for?
Yeah, so my some of the colleges that I've been accepted to so far are Northeastern. I was also accepted into University of Wisconsin-Madison, so they're also a pretty solid computer science school. And then I've also been accepted to UC Merced and San Jose State. So those
Got it.
five have come out. The rest I have either been deferred by or I'm currently waiting on a lot of the UC schools. I'm waiting on a couple privates and out of states. So yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So I'm sure there'll be questions later on, kind of about, different things and so on and so forth. But let's kind of talk about kind of where it all started, right? You started high school 4 years ago, right? That's when this whole journey started for you, right? Can you talk a little bit about kind of your class progression, right? And because you're a computer science student, right? And a STEM student, maybe you can talk a little bit about your kind of pathway with math and science and kind of what are some of the classes that you took?
Yeah. So for me, freshman year, like I know some schools they allow freshmen to take honors and AP classes, but I wasn't able to take any of those classes. So my school had actually limited freshmen from taking any of those classes. So I had started off in all basically base level classes other than math. So for math, the math that I started with was the equivalent of pre-calculus and algebra 2. And from there, freshman year, I was able to take three APs my sophomore year and one honors class. So sophomore year, I had taken AP Calculus AB, I had taken World History AP, and I had taken AP Physics 1. With that, I had also taken one honors, which was English 2 honors, because weren't able to take any AP English. So I tried to make the most of the opportunities I was given at my school, so I enrolled in three APs. Junior year, I upped my rigor a little bit. I had taken one more AP, so I'd done four APs and one honors class my junior year. And with that, senior year, I tried to continue the same path. So I'm currently taking four APs this year. And outside of school, I also enrolled myself in a good amount of concurrent enrollment classes. I've not done dual enrollment, but I basically kind of signed myself up to be a student at my local community colleges. And from community college, I took about five courses, and most of them were in coding. So yeah, junior year, I had taken AP Calculus BC, I had taken AP Physics 2, I had taken APUSH, and I had taken AP Computer Science A. And currently this year, I'm taking AP Chemistry, AP Statistics, AP Literature, and AP Government. So I tried to take as many STEM courses as my school offered, while also kind of taking classes that were like not just STEM related, but also kind of like being like an all-rounded student, essentially. However, at community college, I had taken mostly coding courses.
Awesome, awesome. So Prashant is obviously a student that took our advice on the kind of dual enrollment and kind of, pushing the rigor there. We do have a question in the chat real quick, and I do want to answer it. The office hour will be starting at 5:30. This is kind of a special session, real quickly. Coach Tony will be coming on at 5:30 to kind of continue with office hours. Okay. All right, so great. So you took a lot of kind of AP classes, AP science classes, right? You're pushing in math, right? Finished BC, taking AP stats, right? And you took a bunch of coding classes outside dual enrollment. So that's great. Now, the question that a lot of our families are probably going to have for you, how were your grades?
My grades were, I would say I was a relatively good student. I had maybe, I think in throughout all of my high school, I had three Bs. So I had to be my freshman year, my sophomore year, and just last semester. But other than that, relatively, I maintained straight A's. Like I had straight A's my junior year, like one semester my sophomore year. So overall, that brought my GPA up.
Great, great. Yeah, Prashant pushed really hard, right? And he was very successful, right? He learned how to prioritize his time and get through all of that hard coursework. So that's obviously a great thing that he did there. And hopefully that carries over into college, right? Now, another question our families are going to have for you is, did you take the SAT or ACT?
I did, in fact, take the SAT.
Got
And
it.
for SAT, my score was a 1510. And another question they might have is about AP scores. And AP scores, I generally scored fours or fives on basically all of my exams.
Awesome, awesome. Another question though they will for sure have is how many times did you take the SAT?
The SAT, I had ended up taking four times, but it's worth noting that two of those times were on paper and then two of those times were digital.
Got it, got it. So Prashant was part of that, this graduation year, the class of 2025, where the test changed kind of like at the end of their sophomore year. It changed from paper and pencil to digital, right? And so that was probably one of the reasons why he probably took it four times too, because he was getting used to the digital version, right? Now, for those of you guys that don't know, the ACT is also changing in that way too. They're going to be having paper and they're going to have digital. So that's something to watch out for as well. Okay, so academics, it's pretty straightforward for you. You were a great student, right? You pushed hard, right? You kind of took all the hard classes that were available at your high school, right? And also you took classes outside. How about activities? What are some of the more memorable things that you were involved in?
Yeah, so for activities, I think this is kind of what helped me get into Purdue in the first place and kind of helped me stand out. So for activities, so starting with in school, I was involved a lot. So I was part of student government, and within student government, I was part of the executive board, which is basically the kind of the level that oversees everything for the school. So that was probably the biggest thing I was in school. Aside from that, I was part of six clubs at Prospect, which is my high school. And what I was president of three of those clubs. So one of them was California Scholarship Federation, which is the biggest club at Prospect. I was also president of Cultural Service Club, which is a volunteering club where we kind of provide volunteering opportunities for students on campus. And I was president of Mesa, which is a peer tutoring club. Some of the other clubs that was notable that I was a part of was Red Cross Club. I was the treasurer of that. Speech and debate, which I was the vice president of, but the year before that, I was also the captain, the parliamentary captain of that. And I was also the co-founder and current secretary of South Asian Student Union, which we kind of created sophomore year. And that was probably one of the biggest clubs and things that kind of helped me stand out. Outside of school, I'd done kind of a good amount of things relating to my major, which probably helped. One of the biggest things that I did was hackathons. So I had competed in quite a few hackathons and actually won awards for the projects that I coded there. So like whether it was like competing like in my state or it was going to collegiate level hackathons, I tried to push myself and kind of do as best as I could with the opportunities I was given. I had also taken on a research opportunity at UC Santa Barbara. So there was a program, Summer Research Academies, which I had applied to and was accepted to. I was accepted to their most competitive track, and there I had worked on a paper and gotten it published at UC Santa Barbara's own journal. And with that, I kind of got a lot of like insights and knowledge on like how like the academia side of computer science really is. And that was probably one of the most impactful extracurriculars of mine. Another impactful extracurricular I had was an internship. So I had done an internship my junior year, starting from my junior year all the way to like the senior year. It just ended last semester, and throughout that internship, I had actually worked with a real company. I wrote real code for them. So I was basically doing like a software engineering job at a high school level. And essentially, that internship was also a pretty big factor because I worked there for about 6 months and I had done a pretty good amount of work for them. And I was able to actually get my name on the paper that they were working on as well. So those were like kind of like the highlights of my extracurriculars, I would say.
Got it, got it. So thank you for sharing that. Now, this is a hard question for you, okay? Out of all your activities, right? What was the one that like if you could do over again, right? Would be the kind of activity that you want to be involved in again? And can you tell us a little bit about why? What learning did you get, or what experience did you have that was so meaningful?
I think definitely if I were to do any of my extracurriculars again, the most impactful one by far was my research. I think just given the fact that like you're essentially like we got that paper done in 1 month, and that was probably the hardest I was ever working. And just given the fact that like a lot of people like applied to that program, first it was a very prestigious program to get into in the first place. So I was very like happy to get into that program. But just given like the work that we actually ended up doing and kind of like the fact that we were able to actually change like create some change in the world by creating our own like novel research was actually like pretty incredible. And I think another thing that stood out for me was the fact that we were working with like real professors and PhD students at UC Santa Barbara to kind of get that paper out of the way and kind of get it published. It was definitely like a whole new learning experience for me. And some of the skills I got from it included like a lot of like kind of being able to present findings and being able to speak to a lot of people to about what we actually found. That was one thing, because once we had written the paper, we had also presented it to families. We presented it to UC Santa Barbara faculty and kind of shown them this is what we did in 1 month, and this is kind of how it's important. So that was definitely one thing. And I'd also met a lot of great people there. I made a lot of useful connections. And yeah, it was definitely a great experience.
Okay, awesome, awesome. That's great. That's great. Okay, I want to ask you another question because generally computer science and engineering students, they have a lot of colleges on their list, right? And it's because obviously you guys are going for a very competitive major. You want to make sure you have options, right? So let's talk about kind of your college list, right? How did you go about choosing it? How many did you end up applying to? Just so that we can get a little bit more insight into that area.
Yeah. So definitely choosing my colleges was a hard task because in like computer science and engineering, there are so many great and reputable universities that you can apply to. You have a lot of options. For me, the biggest thing that it came down to was first, I'm obviously a California resident. So it would make sense for me to apply to a lot of California schools, just given the fact that there are a lot of great schools. So that was one factor that kind of helped me narrow my choices. The next thing that was really important for me, and I think a lot of people should consider, is how well does a college actually fit with you? So when I was researching, there was plenty of universities I could have applied to, but a lot of them actually did not kind of fit with me. They weren't really the kind of culture I wanted to be myself, put myself into for the next 4 years. So given that, I did research in programs and I saw kind of, okay, what majors are they offering? What resources will they have if I do attend and if I am accepted and I do attend? And I looked at the kind of the fit. The fit was a really important thing for me because if I wasn't going to enjoy myself, if I couldn't see myself there for the next 4 years, I wouldn't want to apply there in the first place. So I looked at fit, and I also looked at the end of the day, how well reputed is like university for this for my major. How well will I have a job? Will I be placed after I apply and I do my work at the university? So that was kind of one thing I looked into. And given that, after I narrowed down my choices, I had applied to around, I believe, 27 or 28 colleges. And that's counting the UCs as not as one. So if we count the University of California application as one, I applied to maybe 20 colleges.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so great for great insight there, right? Now, obviously, our record holder still stands, right? We had a student 2 years ago that applied to 43, so
Wow.
he still holds the record, right?
Yeah.
But even with 20, right, the UCs as one, right, there was a lot of essays that you probably had to write. Okay,
Right.
so can you tell the families kind of a little bit about the process and coming to, the intensive, and then also working with our coaches for the essay submission portal and those sorts of things?
Right. I will just go like right off the bat and say the coaches were super helpful in this process. If you look at my essay from when I started in July compared to now, it's like literally light day and night. It's like completely like very different. And I think one of the biggest things with like the coaches and like this program is that I was constantly getting feedback when I needed it. So like I would come up with an idea, like they would take my idea and turn it into something that was like really great. And that's one thing that I really valued about this program was I would write my essay and it would either be over the word limit or it would maybe have things that I didn't actually need to include. They would help me kind of guide me through, okay, what I should include here rather than like I should take this out and put this in, or I should maybe add this on or expand on this idea. Kind of things like that really helped shape my essays. And the essay writing, like a lot of people say it's the most stressful part. And I will agree, yes, if you kind of put off the work and really like put a lot of time into it, it does get a little bit stressful, especially if you're applying like maybe 40 colleges. But I think one thing that the coaches really helped with was kind of pacing me and like kind of giving me the ideas and basically like giving me like showing me the way to how to write these essays. I think that definitely like helped me get my essays done and like got them. They kind of did multiple checks, and then once it was finally done, they had a final approval stage where it went to a strategist. They kind of read it over, made sure it was all good. And the whole process was like really great. All of my essays I feel were like really strong simply because the coaches were able to kind of add their touches and tell me, okay, add this or expand on this idea, give me this insight, stuff like that.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So you talked about kind of like, the stresses of it and things like that. What's one thing that was kind of unexpected during this whole kind of college admission process that maybe stuck out to you?
I think honestly, the thing that probably was most unexpected for me was like how like mundane or like how you can kind of how the prompts would phrase something that would be completely like normal for you. Like for example, Cornell, when I was applying to Cornell, one of the questions they asked was, "What brings you joy?" That was like a really like strange question. I would not think that they're going to be evaluating you based on what makes you happy, but it turns out they will. I think that was probably the most unexpected thing because colleges can throw like curveballs at you. You may not know what's coming your way, but at the end of the day, you're just gonna have to write and kind of give them that insight. I think another thing that was probably unexpected was how fast like the deadlines actually do come up. If you're not like working like if you're not putting yourself out there like working on time, the deadlines can creep up to you and you'll end up cramming those essays. So I think definitely like I guess a piece of advice with this thing that I was unexpected for me was make sure you're on top of it.
Okay. Awesome, awesome. So that's really great insight, right? We always tell our students, right? October 1st,
Yeah,
November 1st, December 1st. Now, a lot of students went past that, and that's okay. And we're still here to help, right? But we want to make sure that students are getting things done early because less stress, right?
yeah,
We want you guys to enjoy your last winter holiday with your family because after that, you're going to be a visitor, right? You're
yeah.
going to be visiting back from college, right? So that's what we want there. Okay, awesome. So that's great. Now, if you had to kind of pick one part of this kind of journey that you took with us, right? Because, we've been working together for quite a while. What would you say was the most useful part of it? Whether it was, meeting with coaches or the essays, what do you think was the most useful for you?
For me, there I would probably say two things. One was definitely the college app intensive that I went to, because going into that, I had my drafts and like I didn't know like where my essays would be after that weekend, but just having like being able to like go there actually in person, have the coaches like face to face, be able to talk to them, and kind of entering that flow state was like a really great experience for me because that was probably one of the most productive weekends I had working on college applications. The college app intensive was a really great experience for me because like I was able to just get so much done and a lot of the essay writing, like a lot of my essay drafts, like they are fully shaped now because of that weekend that I had working. Another thing I would say was really helpful is the fact that like the coaches they would like be constantly checking in, whether that's on Discord or like through their monthly check-in calls. Their monthly check-in calls was really helpful because it would kind of help me touch base with Coach Art or like whoever was there available for me. Like we would just kind of he would just kind of give me like, okay, here's an action plan for this month, or you should do this. He would give me advice, and he would kind of always be there for me, like ready to like kind of answer my questions or like help me get rid of any concerns that I have and stuff like that. And he would also be like willing to check my essays and kind of piggybacking off that. I guess another thing was the fact that the coaches were able to check my essays at any point. That was super helpful because I would just turn in my essays and like within like 2 or 3 days, I would get my essay back ready to kind of like say, okay, you should add this. Like I was saying, all the feedback that I got was simply because the coaches were available to do it. And yeah, those three things were definitely stuff that stood out for me.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, so there's a couple kind of like final questions, and then I also want to kind of open it up to our families if they have any questions for Prashant here, right? But my first question is, if you had one piece of advice for high school students, right? Whether you can kind of break it up, maybe younger students like 9th, 10th graders, and then also like juniors that are going to be in the next, 3, 4 months starting up on their applications, right? What's one piece of advice you would give to each of those groups right now?
Yeah, so for ninth, 10th graders, I would definitely say really start thinking about what you want, what it is you want to do. The sooner you figure that out, the easier your high school path will be. Because if you know like what you want to do, whether it's like, say I want to go into biology, I would start focusing all my extracurriculars or a good amount of my extracurriculars into that bio field. If you figure that out, it's definitely going to be really easy to be like, okay, when you're writing your application, you can talk about so many things about biology that you did starting from ninth grade that you carried on into 12th grade. If you start early, kind of pick out your major and know what you want to do, it's definitely going to help you. And even if you can't narrow it down, maybe it's just kind of understand, okay, do I want to do STEM or do I want to focus in on humanities? That's always a good start to see where you want to lean towards, because once you figure that out, you start focusing your extracurriculars. And once you start focusing your extracurriculars, you can really see, okay, maybe in the STEM field, computer science isn't for me, but math is. You can start focusing on math. So definitely start thinking about what you want to major in college so that you can base your extracurriculars around that. For juniors who are going to be starting their college applications, I would definitely say, please start early. I think the only reason like I was able to get all my early actions and all my UCs in on time was simply because I was able to start early. Same thing with regular decision. I was able to start early, and because of that, I had my drafts ready and I was able to submit it on time, like maybe not even like the day of. Like I was able to submit it a week or 2 weeks early, and I was able to enjoy my senior year. By starting early, I definitely saved myself a lot of time instead of cramming. Because most stress stories that you'll see online of people saying, oh, like college applications are super stressful and blah, blah. They are, but part of that is simply because they won't have their essays done. So, like, making sure you guys start early and are like working with the coaches and constantly communicating with them, saying, okay, please check my essay or please let me know if I can improve this in any way, is always a great thing to do, especially when you're writing your college applications.
All right. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now, I also see a lot of parents in here too, right? So if you could kind of go back in time, 6 months, and kind of talk to your parents, right, as you're going through this really stressful process, right? What's one piece of advice that you would give parents, right, that have students that are going through this process in a little bit?
Yeah, so for parents, I would 100% say be involved with what your student is, but do not control them. I was lucky enough to have my parents be very involved with my whole college application process. My mom would be very involved. My dad would ask me a lot of questions about, okay, did you get this application in on time? Just kind of check in with them, but if they're asking you to read their essays, kind of like, I mean, don't tell them like what to write, just like let your kind of student or your child like write the essay and kind of get the ideas out, because at the end of the day this is their application, not yours. So you really want to like, you can be involved, but just don't kind of like overshadow them and overcast their ideas. Let it be theirs.
Okay, awesome, awesome. That is something that we kind of tell parents, right? When you guys, a lot of parents like to come to the college application intensives, right? And we say, you know what? It's great that you're here for emotional support, but stay out of our way, right?
Right.
And Prashant he's 100% correct, right? Because the story is the student telling their story. It shouldn't be about the parent and how they see their child, right? To everyone, like to all parents out there, yes, we understand, this is the perfect kid and this and that, right? But the student, they might want to tell a different story about kind of how they felt as they were growing up or this or that. So we want to make sure that they have time to tell their story. Okay. Okay. So thank you for kind of like sharing your insights here.
Yeah.
I did want to make sure that we had a little time for questions. So if we did have time for questions, you guys can put them in the Q&A or you can put them in the chat. And then I will kind of, read them out and then we can kind of, answer them together, right? But in the meantime, me and Prashant will kind of be waiting a little bit just so that we can kind of give you guys a chance to ask those questions, okay? Now, I have a question for you, Prashant, because I'm always worried about
Yeah.
my seniors. How are your grades going this year?
I mean, they're pretty strong so far. I mean, despite taking like concurrent enrollments and stuff and dual enrollments outside of like high school, I've maintained strong grades. So
Okay,
yeah, I like, as much as people say, oh, senioritis is going to knock your grades down, like I've tried to just maintain strong grades.
good, good. It's
Yeah.
it's always good to kind of just finish out strong, right?
Right.
But a lot of students, they do get senioritis, right? And I get it, right? It's like you guys have worked so hard for 4 years. It's totally, I get it, right? But the one thing I always tell my students is this: you don't want to give them a reason, right? Colleges a reason to accept you and then later not accept you,
Right.
right? So it is something that I do think that you should kind of do, or you should just finish out strong, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a question here, right? So it says, how early did you start writing your essays and what helped you develop your essay topics?
So I started as early as July. And when I say like I kind of started writing my essays, I actually didn't start writing until the end of July. What happened was maybe around June, July time, I was more or less thinking about what I wanted to write about. So kind of getting into your like second half of that question, what helped you develop your essay topics? I kind of just thought to myself, okay, what did I do that was very one meaningful to me and kind of like help like helped shape who I was. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to write your essays in a way that kind of look good in the reader's eyes. You just want to be authentic and genuine to yourself. So don't try to avoid thinking about, okay, what story of mine will look good in the admissions officer's eyes. Think more about what really represents me. So for example, when I was looking at the UCPIQs, one of the prompts was definitely like, oh, what is your academic interest? For me, it was coding. I wanted to talk about coding. Coding was a big part of my life, and I really want to talk about that. So I chose coding. Another one talked about like your greatest skill, and I thought, okay, like of all the things I can talk about, people might talk about creativity, people might talk about problem solving, whatever it is. For me, I just felt like gardening was a really big part of my life. I had gardened a lot with my father over COVID, and since then it's been a big part. I carry like plants in my room and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I like felt like, okay, like it's true to me that like to me, like it's a really big part of who I am. So based on that, I kind of chose that as one of my prompts. So really think about one, what means a lot to you, and kind of two, like how did it shape you and like what was the impact it had on you?
Okay. Awesome, awesome. So that's obviously great, right? And then, obviously, we always want students to be true to themselves, right? Like Prashant said, right? Gardening does not seem like a normal topic for a college essay, right? But they're not asking you, if you actually look at the UC prompts, they don't ask you about what you want to study. They're just asking about you, right? And Prashant was able to kind of show who he actually is. Now, obviously, we'll see the results that come out from, the rest of the UCs. He's already in at one, right? I think that there's going to be plenty of more UCs that say yes to Prashant, but we'll have to kind of see, and then we'll see kind of in, late March or early April, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, doesn't look like there's any other questions. Thank you, Prashant, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, of course, if you ever need anything, I know we're still working on a couple pieces, right? There's some, letters of continued interest that we're going to continue working on with you and other things. But if there's ever any other questions, let me know. And then last thing, right? If there's one coach that you could shout out, right? I know you mentioned Coach Art, right? So he
Yeah.
might be, your top one, but who would you shout out and kind of what is your kind of message to Coach Art?
I would definitely shout out Coach Art. I just would say thank you for being with me like since we started. I won't lie, I was definitely kind of intimidated by you at first, but like I think we've definitely built a relationship, and I'm really glad that you were able to be my coach for the longest time and kind of guided me through this stressful process.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys very much. Right. So, Prashant, I will talk to you again soon in Discord and kind of other areas. And then for the rest of the families, Coach Tony should be coming in really soon. We will start office hours as soon as he joins in. Okay. But thank you, Prashant, for being here today. Okay.
Thanks for having me. Bye,
All
everyone.
righty. Bye-bye.